Thank you for tuning in to the MMA Roundtable. It is the 24th Roundtable, March 28th, 2013. Got a little bit to break down for you. We got UFC 158. We actually did not have a Roundtable last week, so we got to break that down. A welterweight showdown. George St-Pierre, Johnny Hendricks, and Jake Ellenberger all victorious. We got the week's worth of news as well. I want to talk a little tough, talk about a couple fight announcements. Let's do it. And thank you for tuning in to the MMA podcast, the MMA Roundtable, Thursday's show where myself, along with some other podcasts like The Word on the Street and MMA Mental, talk some MMA. Actually, we have an all MMA Mental cast alongside me. Ramses is out. He has work, as does Chris, and Dave is still having some technical issues. Haven't had Dave in the last few shows, but he's definitely going to be coming back once he gets his computer issues settled out. But it is just four of us today. It is myself and the three boys from MMA Roundtable, Ray and Jay from the UK, and I didn't even try and make that rhyme, and Patrick from Cali. What is going on, fellas?
All is well with me.
Yeah, Ray. Ray, what's going on with MMA Mental? What interviews you all have going on? What's going down over there?
Yeah, I've had another good week. It's my last show for a week, so I'm away holidaying next week, and then I'm off to Stockholm to cover UFC, which is always fun to do. So there won't be a show next week, but this week I've had some more good interviews on. I interviewed the UC MMA light heavyweight champion this week, Linton Vassal. He had a really big win recently. Then I also spoke, as always, I always team up with the XFC, so I spoke to a couple of their guys as well. I had an interview booked actually with the Bellator lightweight tournament winner, Scott Janssen, which I was really looking forward to. But unfortunately, that interview fell through. But I'm pretty sure I'll get that interview arranged for the future. But yeah, I've had a good week. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to flying off to Stockholm next week, and I've booked into the same hotel as the UFC as well, so I get to meet a few of the fighters. So yeah, I'm really excited for next week.
You know, the last UFC card you were a member of the press at, you actually got to ask Dana White a question at the post-fight press conference. You have any questions in mind yet, or are you going to let him come to you as the fight card goes on?
I'll definitely be at the press conference, and if I get the opportunity, I'll definitely be speaking again, because you just, once I get going, you can't shut me up. But I'm not sure what I'll ask yet. I'll see. But I'll see how the fights go, but it also depends on the panel as well. They normally have the main and the co-main, so it should be Gustafsson and Mousasi, and it'll depend on who else gets the bonuses as to who else will be on the panel for me to speak to, but I certainly won't turn down an opportunity to speak to some of these top people in the world. I'll be there rapping.
Yeah, we'll be breaking down the card next week, but you won't be on the roundtable, unfortunately. So, who do you have winning the main card between Alexander Gustafsson and Gegard Mousasi?
My thoughts at the moment are Alexander Gustafsson. I think it's very hard to go against him. I think it's in his hometown or his home country. You know, they're building him up at the minute. They're pushing him towards a title shot, and it won't be long before he's fighting for the title. But yeah, I see this fight similar to the Shogun fight. The only difference being, with this being a 5-round fight, I think Gustafsson will get a finish, but I've definitely got Gustafsson to win.
Yeah, you've got a lot of big favorites on the card. I'm looking at the lines right now. They only have 4 lines posted. They have Pickett and Easton to be kind of close, but Pickett being the favorite. But right now, Ross Pearson, Alexander Gustafsson, and Matt Mitrione are all giant favorites over Ryan Couture, Gegard Mousasi, and Philip DeFries, respectively. But we will get deep into that card next week on the Roundtable. This week, because we didn't do a show last week, we're going to be breaking down UFC 158. Definitely still a lot to talk about. Stuff still, swirling now. You have the Diaz camp calling out the GSP camp for weighing .9 over, a fact that Ramses took great issue with, saying that the GSP camp and the UFC are in cahoots and it's a conspiracy theory and the Anunnaki added 9 pounds onto GSP or something. But we will talk about all the stuff surrounding the main card and the co-main event, but we'll start with a friend of the show, a friend of both shows actually, Darren Cruikshank. He's been on the MMA podcast twice, been on MMA Mental at least once. Was not able to win at UFC 158 against the hometown favorite John Makdessi, and they call John the Bull for a reason. He is an animal, and he can take a lot of punishment. Darren just really wasn't able to crack him, and John kept on walking forward. It was not the same Darren Cruikshank we saw just a few months ago at UFC on Fox 5, I believe, when he fought Henry Martinez. But what was the change from fight to fight with Darren? Was it just a much better opponent? Did you not see the same kind of aggressiveness out of Darren? I think those two main factors are what what went down. I think Darren cracked John a few times. Expected him to be wobbled, and just the fact that John stayed there and stayed walking forward, I think that kind of messed with the mindset of Darren, and kind of rattled him throughout the fight. I've been talking a shitload about this fight. Ray, Jay, Patrick, what do you guys think?
I suppose I'm in the same boat as you. We've obviously both had the pleasure, as is, of course, Patrick, of speaking to Darren, and he's such a good guy. And him losing that fight was like, I lost the fight. I was just absolutely gutted. I mean, you can't help but like him. You can't help but root for him. I really thought he was going to win that fight. I've never really been that impressed with Makdessi so far. That's just my own opinion. And I have been impressed with Cruikshank. But I don't know what happened. He just never seemed to get going. He never found his rhythm. He wasn't throwing the strikes the way he normally throws. He looked like a fish out of water, which is mad because this was a stand-up fight. And we know that Cruikshank comes from a stand-up background, but he actually looked like he didn't know what he was doing in there, which hurts me to say. But yeah, I was gutted, absolutely gutted. But it wasn't the same Cruikshank that we saw fight against Martinez. Whether it was just too much of a step up for him, I don't know. But yeah, it was a sad fight to watch for me.
Yeah, it was a really, really unusual fight. I don't think anybody expected it to go the way it did. We think we do look at Makdessi as a striker, and we've seen that Cruikshank's got the ability. He's got abilities on the floor as well himself. Makdessi's a really unique fighter in the fact he began his career with 2 straight wins, and people were riding him heavily after that knockout of Carl Watson. And then he lost to Hallman straight off the bat. Like, Hallman made him look like a fool. And now he's got two more wins. I mean, he beat Sam Stout and now Darren Cruikshank. Those are 2 big wins, but both of them are ridiculously close and weird, interesting fights. I mean, the Sam Stout fight, we had the issue with the whole conspiracy that maybe somebody was spying on the camp. The fight was it was crazy. But the one thing I do want to say is Darren is fantastic at marketing himself. He goes on everything. He adds anyone as a friend. He'll reply to any tweet. He's really good at promoting himself. He's a fantastic guy. I don't know what happened in the cage, but Makdessi I think Cruikshank maybe respected his stand-up too much. He had the palms open like he's defending. And he should have been more aggressive. He should have really stepped in there looking for the takedown. But the fight really wasn't what we've seen of Cruikshank at all.
I agree with you guys 100%. I think Darren looked maybe a little cautious out there. Maybe he just had too much respect for Makdessi's level of talent. He is a really great striker. But I thought that Cruikshank would definitely be able to put together the kind of plan that would allow him to defeat John Makdessi. I liked his length. They both have amazing striking. We did get to see it, even though not many exotic techniques connected. We did see some good displays, some fancy kicking. But I think Darren, he just didn't want to get in there and let his hands go. I don't know if that was the result of the James Vick knockout. I don't want to say he's afraid of getting knocked out, but, sometimes they'll make you fight cautious and perhaps overly cautious. I thought he could have taken that fight, but, and of course there's always the fact that he was in McDessie's backyard pretty much, and McDessie was the huge hometown favorite, as Jake alluded to. So, who knows what it was, but I really like both these guys. I know we all do. They're both very technical strikers, and they both have a lot of good stuff coming in the future.
Definitely. We actually did have someone try and call in when you were talking, Jay, and unfortunately, because of bandwidth, the roundtable, we normally don't take calls. Usually on the MMA podcast, when it's just 2 or 3 of us hosting, we can take a caller or two. But when it gets up to having 4, 5, 6 people on the roundtable, we try and keep the bandwidth as low as possible, but definitely tweet us. We'll read your tweets on the air. The Twitter is the MMA Podcast, or you can tweet MMA Mental if you'd rather. I would tweet MMA Mental just to hear Ray's smooth, sultry voice read my tweet. But tweet us. But sorry, we are not taking phone calls for this show. But moving on. We had a couple fights, in my opinion, that were boring as hell. We had Mike Ricci dominating Colin Fletcher bell to bell. As most people thought, Ricci was a huge favorite and really was the better fighter. We actually had a regular caller, Yao, call in last night and challenge Ricci to a fight for being so boring. Ramsey says he's off the hype train for Ricci. And we also had Chris Camozzi won a fight against Nick Ring that I'm sure along with Jay had Ring winning, but Chris wins. I believe it was a split decision. I could talk about, I really couldn't. Both these fights were boring as hell. What am I saying? Jay, I know your boy Nick lost a shaky nod from the judges. What did you think about those 2 fights?
Nick Ring outstruck him. I heard that he got like 22 more strikes in, something around those numbers, which is ridiculous in my eyes. I thought Nick Ring won the fight, but whatever happens, it's Nick Ring, so every fight's going to end up in a dodgy decision of some kind. Nick Ring won the first round though, so the record remains intact. You cannot beat Nick Ring in that first round, but that's just that. I heard he lost the second and third, and it was a split decision anyway. I didn't think the Ricci Fletcher fight was that boring, really. A lot of people are saying that these fights were boring. I don't know, if you think these fights are boring, you're definitely into the wrong sport, because they were throwing a lot of kicks, they're landing a lot of strikes, leg kicks, the legs, the body. The fight was, it was back and forth, but I didn't find it the most boring thing in the world. I found it technically very sound and very interesting to see how these guys performed, and I enjoyed these fights. I don't think in my mind, there wasn't a boring fight on the card, but some people are even saying apparently I read somebody say that the Hendricks Condit fight was boring as well, and some people out there are just dissing on this card for no reason. I enjoyed the entire event. I found no event really boring, but that was just me. I find other events boring when people say they're interesting, so whatever.
You thought Hendo Machida was exciting.
I did, yes. But I'd like to also point out that I was hating every minute of that Etim versus Barboza fight. I actually stopped watching that fight. I was so bored. I stopped watching. I went to go to the toilet, and then somebody knocked on the toilet door saying it's finished. And I was like, how did it finish? And then I was like, fuck. So there are times when I also do get bored. I do get bored sometimes.
I'm going to hold that fact against you until the day you die. If you die first, I'm going to go to your funeral and tell everybody there you thought Hendo Machida was an exciting fight.
It was exciting. I defend that to the death as well.
Patrick?
Yeah, I think I use this block of programming to take a bathroom break or something like that, because I don't know, I did not catch them. So that's all I got.
I agree with you, Jake. I picked Fletcher to win, but I probably picked with my heart rather than my head. But I really was rooting for Fletcher. Obviously, I've interviewed Colin Fletcher. He's a UK guy. And Fletcher did lose the fight. But I didn't come away from that fight impressed with Ricci. I thought Ricci was absolutely terrible. And I'm with Ramses. I'm off the Ricci bandwagon as well. To be fair, I was never really on the bandwagon because a lot of people thought he was going to beat Carlton Smith. And I picked Carlton to win that fight just because of his wrestling. And obviously, Carlton controlled him from start to finish. But yeah, I think Ricci's attitude's all wrong as well, to be honest with you. I think he thinks he's bigger and better than what he is. So I'm looking forward to seeing him losing his next fight, hopefully. And hopefully it won't be long before he gets cut. Camozzi and Ring. I know we've got a big Nick Ring fan on the show, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Ring was cut after this because this was a terrible fight. And with some of the names we've already seen cut that are definitely more exciting to watch than what Nick Ring is, I don't think it would be that shocking if he was cut. But this, again, I didn't come away from this fight. I wasn't impressed by Camozzi. I didn't think Ring was that bad. For me, they were both as bad as each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think most fans like Fletcher a lot more than Ricci. Fletcher's kind of a awkward, down-to-earth, humble guy, while Ricci just seems like that entitled, like, over-serious douchebag who will go and buy really expensive prostitutes and have sex with them with Burberry condoms. That's the kind of guy I see Mike Ricci as. And I do think we have somebody tweet in. Nope, just somebody retweeted us. Never mind. But moving on to the welterweight fights, Jake Ellenberger defeating Nate Marquardt. I like both guys a lot, and even though I really like Nate, I think I called an early Jake Ellenberger knockout here. I think Jake Ellenberger is a lot better fighter than most people give him credit for. He has 2 fights in his entire UFC career, and that was a shaky split decision loss against Carlos Condit, and in my eyes, what was a controversial loss against Martin Kampmann. I know most people don't agree with me, and I've said it a million times, but I thought Jake dropped Martin just as hard as the first, as he dropped him in the second to get the TKO. But I digress. Where does this fight put Jake Ellenberger in the welterweight division? I'm thinking about it. I stammered because all the names of welterweights just came pouring in my head. You have a whole bunch. We talked about it last night on the MMA podcast. Really, it seems like after Hendricks versus GSP, Jake Ellenberger is up there with who deserves a title shot next. Pretty much the overall consensus on the show was that Jake Ellenberger should fight Damian Maia next, and we should see Rory fight Condit and get that rematch and give the winner of Damian versus Jake the next title shot. I like that thought. I think Rory's just as high up there as Jake and Damian, though. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the UFC does with the welterweights now, because now that all of them have fought recently, none of them really, except for GSP and Hendricks, have a match set for the future. Patrick, where does this put Jake in the welterweight division?
Well, you said it, Jake. This puts him pretty close. I mean, he's in the mix, as Uncle Dana would say. This puts him pretty close to the title. If his next fight is a big fight and he comes through with another really good victory, like he had over Nate Marquardt, then, he could be looking at a title shot very soon, taking on the winner of GSP versus Hendricks even. As for Carlos Condit, this doesn't put him too far down in the pack. He's got 2 losses in a row, yes, but to GSP and Johnny Hendricks, he went the distance, and he put up a hell of a fight with Johnny Hendricks, too. That was a fantastic war. I don't know. So as far as Jake Ellenberger goes, though, Damian Maia is a good fight for him. If that's not available, heck, I'd say maybe even Tyron Woodley, just based on how impressive his devastation over Jay Heron was.
Just quickly, I've just had a message from someone who's listening in, and that it's from Jeremy Anger, aka Sparky, and his thoughts are that Chris Camozzi won that fight that's what his thoughts was on the fight. Moving back onto obviously Jake Ellenberger and Nate Marquardt, I was shocked by this fight because I've always been a big fan of Nate, and I thought Nate had the tools to beat Jake. But Jake Ellenberger come out on fire. He was amazing, and that punch was absolutely epic. I don't think the loss to Kampman was controversial personally. Ellenberger gassed, Kampman beat him. That was different. Ellenberger's cardio. Where does Ellenberger go from here? You know, he's in the top tier of that division. You beat someone like Nate Marquardt, and it wasn't just the fact he beat him; it was how he beat him. And for me, the main card, it wasn't a great main card. This fight and the Hendricks-Condit fight, in my opinion, these two fights stole the show for different reasons. This card, that's what I remember this card for, was those two fights. I like Ellenberger versus Maia. The other name that you didn't mention that I don't think should be ruled out either is Tariq Saffiedine. Of course, he beat Nate Maia quite impressively as well. He was the last Strikeforce welterweight champion. I think he's in contention as well. I know Jay's a big fan of the welterweight division, but at the minute, this division is absolutely epic. There's so many good guys at the top of that division. It's exciting.
The thing is it's always been this exciting. It's just that sometimes you get GSP who, GSP has always dominated the division. But if you think about it, every year, if you just say like August every year, the year before it, there'll be a different top 10. The year before it, it's not like the middleweight division where you've always got your Son and you've always got your Belfort, you've always got your Akami in that top 10. The division changes around so much. I mean, Josh Koscheck and John Fitch, you would have ranked them consistently up there, but now they haven't pulled a win together. Lawler knocks them out. The division is crazy. And you even think about John Fitch, like he went from the number 2 in the world to getting Fitched himself and getting knocked out in 10 seconds. The division changes hands so often. And Jake Ellenberger, people are saying he's in the mix. And you can't forget just 2 fights ago, Martin Kampman knocked him out. I know that people disagree with it, but Ellenberger, that's his issue. His issue is how far he can take that fight. A name that somebody that he, I think, mentioned himself, is Rick Story. And Rick Story, I think, maybe even called him out. Rick Story's got a great chin. Ellenberger would have to out-wrestle him, which he wasn't able to do in their rematch. But the only issue I've got is the Rick Story is so low down. Also, where the hell is Thiago Alves? Alves versus Saffiedine's a fantastic fight. There's so many fights available, but I think most likely it's going to be Maia versus Ellenberger. But there's so many great fights for him out there. And I also want to say I think Jeremy Anger is wrong. I think Nick Ring won that fight, but whatever.
Oh shit!
Is back on you, JP? No, Patrick's talked on you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right. I totally spaced. Yeah, Ray, I do agree Tariq Saffiedine should be up there, but I actually got a tweet today from one of our followers saying that Tariq Saffiedine turned down the fight against Jake Ellenberger, was offered it and turned it down, and we know what the UFC thinks about guys turning down fights. Never really favorable on that. We will move on though toward the co-main event, Johnny Hendricks fighting Carlos Condit. We know this puts Johnny in the title shot position, but where does Carlos go from here after 2 straight losses, Ray?
To be honest with you, the nature of the losses means that Carlos Condit is still 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot, and that's the difference between winning boring and losing exciting. I know Carlos Condit lost his fight to Hendricks, and I personally believe he lost the fight. But who didn't come away from that fight being impressed with both those guys? Because they both left it out there. Some of the punches Hendricks landed, I don't know how Condit was still there. Some of the knees Condit landed, I don't know how Hendricks was still there. So you know what? Condit lost his fight, and it's obviously a loss on his record, and it's put him further down. But because of how he fought, and because he fought his heart out, he wins his next fight and he's back in title contention again because he is just he's just an exciting fighter. It looks like his next fight. Well, I'm assuming his next fight will be McDonald because that's the fight that should have happened. But Condit, after that fight, is still in the title picture in my eyes.
I'm thinking I'm up. I think the Hendricks situation is interesting. The fact that he still is kind of no dates being set yet. Is he being overlooked yet again? He's won 6 in a row, and all of the names are so impressive. From TJ Wardberger right the way now through to Condit. As for Condit himself, I think he still gets the McDonald fight. But the question you asked was where does he go from here? And where does he go? To a decent camp of wrestlers. He needs to work on that wrestlers. Nobody should be able to take you down 12 times in the fight. I think that out of those 12 takedowns he got, I think Condit defended a total of 2. So Hendricks went 12 for 14. That's crazy. Condit knows what he needs to train on. He said it himself. Hendricks was the better fighter on the night. Maybe in 18 months down the line, if Hendricks has got the belt, that was probably going to be a rematch we'd eventually see when Condit gets some wrestling game together. Either way, it was a fantastic fight, and it was a show stealer. I don't deny it at all.
Patrick?
Yeah, that really was an amazing fight. Carlos Condit, I mean, you guys pretty much said it. I know I did earlier talking about the previous fight, but he doesn't fall too far here. He probably gets the Rory Mac fight again, just due to Rory McDonald coming off an injury and everything like that, the layoff time. I guess ring rust and losing the streak kind of equates that out. So that's how I see that going. As far as him, if that's not available, there's a whole host of good matches. I don't think he's going to fall too far from this. He's going to be main eventing or on the main card of UFC cards for some time to come, just because of the way he fights in victory or defeat.
Definitely, yeah. It sucks because I truly would put Carlos in the top 15 pound-for-pound guys in the world. He is truly an amazing fighter, but he's only the third best in his own weight class. Johnny really has the perfect skill set for fighting in the welterweight division of the UFC. He has really heavy hands, an iron chin, and wrestling to boot. That is exactly what you need, and it's what he's got. He is a really, really great fighter, but he did say something kind of weird recently. He said he wishes he fought George St-Pierre the same way he fought Johnny Hendricks, and in a way, I sort of think he's roundaboutly saying Johnny Hendricks is a better fighter than GSP, because I would assume him saying that is saying, if I would have fought Johnny like I fought George, I would have beat George. Well, I really cannot wait for this Johnny versus George fight. Did you all interpret that that quote the same way as I did? Because if anybody can compare Johnny to George, it's Carlos Condit, who's just fought both guys. And to me, what I think he said was very, very interesting, right?
It's the first time I've heard the quote being said, but what I take from the quote is that he felt if he fought like that, he would have beat GSP. Yeah, I'm definitely reading into that. But what, turning the quote on its head, the way I look at it, the reason Carlos Condit didn't fight George like that is not because of anything Carlos Condit did wrong. It's because of George's game plan. And what George does is he shuts people down. He beats you by stopping you from doing the work. You can't strike with him when you're on your back. You can't, do jiu-jitsu off your back because he's so controlling. And so for me, it's a stupid statement to make, in my opinion, because we all know the reason why he didn't fight that way was not because of anything he did differently. It's because GSP is so good at shutting people down. So for me, it's a non-saying in my view.
Jay?
Sorry, I thought it was Patrick for some reason, then I read it was me.
You're after Ray every time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't read into it too much. I think Johnny Hendricks, Ray's exactly right. His GSP does, his game plan is perfect, always perfect. And Carlos Condit had no option. Carlos Condit knew that what he had to do in order to win the GSP fight was land. And that's what he tried to do. He got it in the fourth. And we saw GSP's reaction. It was one head kick, but he went all over the place. Whereas if you look at when GSP head kicked Jake Shields, he head kicked him, he dropped, but Shields knew how to react. I don't think GSP hasn't been hit enough. he's just not used to the whole situation. So I think Carlos Condit had the right game plan. He just did it better. His game plan was just better. That's what I think.
What do you think, Patrick?
Yeah, I think it's really an interesting statement. I don't know. It's one of those things. Why would you say that? I definitely understand where you could get the inference that Carlos Condit thinks Johnny Hendricks is better than GSP, even if he's kind of saying that without maybe even realizing he's saying that, because that does kind of imply, if I fought him the same way, maybe I could have gotten the finish, maybe I could have won, but it's like, well, you're admitting that the way you fought Johnny Hendricks, you just couldn't beat him. So definitely an interesting statement. I'm definitely ready for Johnny Hendricks versus GSP.
For sure, yeah. And that brings us to GSP defending his belt against Nick Diaz and doing it quite handily. Really, Diaz, his two main skills, his jiu-jitsu and his boxing, were totally quelled. He had nothing, he simply had nothing for it. But the thing that really bugged me about it, and Bill Burr actually said beautifully on his show, was that he said he rarely buys pay-per-views, but bought this one because he knows about GSP, knows about him being the nice guy, blah 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 blah. Said that he saw the pay-per-view of Dana going, George snapped today. I've never seen him more fired up. He's never been more angry in his entire life, and he's said he'd put a beating on Nick Diaz like we've never seen before, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward to after the fight, George has just whooped Diaz's ass, and this is the moment everybody bought the pay-per-view for, to hear George be like, hey, you son of a bitch, I got you, you are a bad fighter, just not cuss at him, but be like, I told you, what, I know that's not him, but I wanted to see a little more emotion, and for GSP to go, I did not take anything he said personally. It's like, really, man? I mean, talk about selling wolf tickets. You took nothing personally, yet this entire card was literally based upon the fact that you took it personally. I was really not down with that, and it really kind of bummed me out. With the first him being, I do not take it personally, and then when Nick's like, yeah, I think I'm done fighting, and GSP standing there, no, Nick, you are very good, you should not stop, you are the best. It's like, man, come the fuck on. I don't know, man. What was your reaction to GSP saying that he took nothing personally, Jay?
It's hard to deny that he took everything personally. I mean, I think Dana kind of sums up, I don't know whether this is related to kind of what you want me to say, but Dana himself said it, that when one of the media members said that it felt like it was all set up and it was all staged, and he didn't like how the two people, they all shook hands and made out like that they were just selling the fight. But I think Dana White said it best, was that when he finally went backstage, he heard Nick Diaz talking to a press conference guy, and he said straight to the press conference guy something like, I want a rematch, GSP punches like a girl, he's something like, he was too pussy to fight me properly. Like, he just wants, I think he appreciated it at the time, but you give Nick Diaz his 8 minutes and then he's straight back to it, he's pissed off. GSP also said himself, it was one fight where he's never fought somebody who plays so many mind games, with Jake Shields, the fact that, the glove's okay, as soon as he goes out the room, no, the glove wasn't okay. So then everybody gets all worried. It's just getting in his head. I think he shouldn't have taken anything personally, but the whole point of Nick Diaz's game is to get in his opponent's head, and it's worked against so many people. It just didn't work against GSP, and that's the truth. I think he probably did take it personally. I think there was a little bit, but GSP's again trying to come off as the nice guy again. He's trying to keep this aura, but he was fired up. You could see it in so many things.
Definitely. I think GSP did take it personally. I think that's kind of just maybe his way of coping with the whole situation. I mean, I thought Nick Diaz really could have done a lot more in that fight. Somewhere in the third round, he finally was able to stop the takedown, which probably no one in the world thought would happen. And I don't even think he got took down in the fourth and fifth rounds, but he got boxed up, and he was obviously down the first couple rounds where he was getting beat up on the ground, and then through the third, fourth, and fifth, he was stopping the takedowns, and then he was playing his little mind games, letting GSP punch him and stuff like that, but he was never committing, never coming forward, never pressing the action. It was like he just let GSP beat him up, and, who knows what's going on in his head. I'm like, dude, that's your time. You just stopped the takedown. This is what you want. I feel he should have gone for it a little bit more. I think GSP, he's just trying to convince himself psychologically that there's no hard feelings, and I think that's just a coping mechanism.
I disagree. I think that this was all set up to sell a pay-per-view. They've been doing it in boxing for years. We've still got it going on. We had a boxer recently, a UK boxer who went abroad, and I think he managed to attack one boxer in a bit of a brawl. He spat at another one. All he's doing is set himself up for future fights, and that's exactly what Diaz did. There was as much animosity between Diaz and GSP as there was between Sonnen and Silva, which is zero and zilch. It was done for one reason. It was done to sell a pay-per-view, so people will pay, is it $50 or whatever it is in the US and Canada, because they want to see that fight, and that's all it ever was going to be. And it was great to watch the build-up, but that's all it ever was, and Diaz is always going to be someone that talks shit. We already know that about him anyway. But it was done for one reason, to promote the card. And the irony was, the most exciting part of that fight was the build-up. The actual fight was it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. The build-up was awesome. And who'll ever forget that press conference call and, when they did the media stuff, it was just amazing. But the actual fight itself was just an okay fight.
For sure, yeah. Ray, I totally side with you. I think the UFC was selling wolf tickets, and it's just a bummer. It was like, not only did you give a fighter a title shot that most people don't think he warranted, but on top of that, you're going to be selling wolf tickets. Come on, son, you can do better than that, UFC. I love you, Dana White. You run the UFC better than any president runs any other sport, but I really didn't like a lot of the circumstances. Even though, there were moments where they were keyed up, the conference call, the, GSP walking up to Diaz real quick at the weigh-in, but overall you're selling wolf tickets, son. We'll move on though to the loser, Nick Diaz. What is next for Nick? Said he's going to retire, but I don't think most people think he's going to. We talked about it yesterday on the MMA podcast, and just, if you're gonna give Nick a guy who is a little bit better than what he deserves because of his smack talk, then maybe to balance it out, give him a guy a little bit worse than he deserves just because of the smack talk. And I think we should see Nick Diaz versus Josh Koscheck, similar to Sonnen Bisping. It's the biggest troll of the division, taking on the most trollable fighter in the division. I would love to hear the John back and forth at the presser and the weigh-in. That would be a lot of fun. What do you all think is next for Nick Diaz, Jay?
I think that fight makes a lot of sense. Although I think that what am I trying to say here? I think that Nick Diaz has still got some beef with Carlos Condit, to be honest. I think he hated the way that Carlos Condit fought him. He ran backwards. I think if there's one fight Nick Diaz wants more than anything, it's to be able to finally punch Carlos Condit in the face instead of running away from the entire however many rounds he likes to claim it was. I don't know whether he does go to middleweight, because that's what he thinks he wants. But really, one knee to the body from Anderson Silva is going to finish his entire career if that happens. I think if he wants to retire, if your head's out the game, just keep it out of the game. But if he wants to try and face somebody like Josh Koscheck, go for it. But also, Robbie Lawler's on the rise. That's a rematch people want to see. You know, Nick Diaz pulled off the upset many years ago. Would it happen again this time that Nick Diaz is now probably the favourite this time? I don't know, but I do like the Koscheck fight, and that's probably what we'll see.
Yeah, any of those fights really sounds good. The Koscheck fight, if he were to get the Condit rematch, that makes a lot of sense too. Both guys have 2 losses. That decision was definitely controversial. That definitely set the old interwebs aflame, if you will. So I think that'd be a good route to go. What's next for him? He'll keep doing his thing. You know, I think he's got a lot of time left in the sport. He keeps saying he's going to retire. He's not even 30 though. Hopefully he gets his head together and can come back focused. And I'm sure he's got some good matches waiting.
Nick Diaz plays a character. He's not going to retire. He likes to whinge and moan because that's the character he portrays. As to what's next for him, I'm not really interested in seeing a rematch with Condit because I think it's fair to say that was a pretty terrible fight. I wouldn't be that keen on seeing him fight Koscheck because for me that's Nick Diaz versus another wrestler, and we've seen it. Many of us that have followed the Diazes for years, Nick and Nate, we've all said the same. They struggle against wrestlers. That's just a fact. I think a lot of guys struggle against the wrestlers, and I just see Koscheck lying on him for 3 rounds because he wouldn't be able to finish Diaz, but that's what would happen. I think. I like what Jay said. That was my first thought. I want to see the rematch from, I think it was UFC 47 if I remember rightly, Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. It was this young BJJ kid against ruthless Robbie Lawler that everyone said, you know, Diaz, don't stand with Lawler. What does he do? He one punch knocked Lawler out, which was just epic at the time. And the irony was, if they was to fight again, obviously Diaz would be a big favourite, where he, of course, was a big underdog last time. And if Lawler was to knock Diaz out, imagine the reversal, with Diaz the underdog knocking out Lawler, and then years later, Lawler the underdog knocking out Diaz. I'd love to see Diaz versus Lawler. I think that would be a great fight. And Lawler likes to smack talk as well, so that'd be a good build-up. For sure,
yeah. Yeah, that would be an excellent build-up. Shit, I'm just thinking about it now. But Diaz, you know, before we get to another sort of controversial part about GSP walking out in his gi, you recently had the Diaz camp taking a lot of issue over the fact that apparently the weigh-in officials in Montreal said that you were allowed to weigh in 0.9 over. Ramses was making a huge deal about it, saying that it's BS, that GSP got to weigh in 0.9 over, and Nick Diaz is calling him out for it. Nick Diaz, who, by the way, threw a late punch in the same fight, which was definitely more an advantage than a pound of weight, that GSP obviously could have shed. He didn't look drawn out at all. Should we just move on and tack this up to Diaz being really petulant as usual after a loss, Jay?
It was a weird situation, but is £9 really going to make this 1 hour and it's not even £9, it's 0.9
Yeah, 0.9.
Are we really debating this? The fight happened. He lost. GSP was apparently also ill. He lost all 5 rounds. The only close round was the 3rd, which he still lost. I don't think anything changes in a rematch. I don't see why the petition won't. Even if Nick Diaz complains or whatever, the fight, it won't make a difference. What's he really asking for? I think the only likely outcome of this entire thing is he gets quick. I can't think of the word, but he gets quick. I can't even think of it. On a title shot quicker. What am I thinking about here? Fast track, that's the one. I think that's the only likely scenario. Maybe with 2 wins instead of 3 or 4, he could get a rematch. But right now, I don't think that's going to make much of a difference.
I certainly don't think the 0.9 pounds made a difference. However, I do feel like it's kind of a big deal. It really depends on the knowledge. Like, how far in advance did GSP's camp know this? We know the DS camp found out about this fairly late, I guess like the day of the weigh-ins or the day before or something like that. And I could see where that would be an issue, just because, heck, if you have that 0.9 pound leeway, I mean, that's almost a full pound. So if you can come in at 170.9 and that's your target weight, who knows, maybe you're training differently, maybe you're cutting differently, maybe you could do it in a way where you end up with more energy in your tank. Again, I ultimately don't think that really affected the outcome of the fight, but I do think there's an issue with it. What's going to come of it? I said probably nothing. There probably will be no sanctions, no anything like that. I don't think this will have any bearing on Diaz's career. This won't be like the Condit decision, where it was close, so it could go both ways. This will have really no bearing on anything, I feel.
I agree with a lot of what Patrick said. It won't have any bearing on it, and it didn't change the way the fight played out, because GSP was going to beat Diaz regardless, and I think most of us knew that going into the fight. And let's be fair, the fight wasn't even really competitive, which is why a champion shouldn't choose a number one contender. I mean, there's no way Diaz should have had that fight. It was a joke, and it made a bit of a mockery of things, really. Personally, it devalued the whole title fight situation. To come up, fight for a title off of a loss is ridiculous. With regards to the weight thing, for me, it's the rules. The rules should be set, and both guys should know the rules right from the outset. If it was 0.9, then Diaz should have known that from the off. It shouldn't be down to one commission to another to change that to favour someone. So I absolutely agree with the fact that it was unfair. Like I said, I don't think it would have changed the result, and I don't think anything will come of it either. The problem with Nick Diaz is he whinges about everything. The problem when you whinge about everything is when you've got something genuine to whinge about, no one listens to you because they're so used to you whinging about stuff you don't need to be genuine. It's like the boy who cried wolf. Diaz cries wolf all the time. Now he's got a genuine reason to cry wolf. No one cares because they're sick to death of hearing him whinge.
For sure. And Ray, I know you're going to get a little bit more to it during our Bonehead of the Week, but apparently Hayabusa sent GSP out in a gi, which, I'm about to sneeze. No, I'm not. All right. It had the rising sun symbol on it, which, it's a controversial symbol. The kamikazes used it during World War II, and it is kind of a negative symbol. GSP has apologized. Hayabusa has apologized and said that this gi won't be going out to market. What did you all think? Personally, I see why people are offended, but come the hell on, man. It isn't like GSP's walking out saying that he supports kamikazes and these, fighters way long ago. It's a cool symbol, but I probably, honestly, I'll admit I probably lie a little too liberal on that thing. I think people should be able to use swastikas. I mean, as long as they aren't Nazis, shit, it's been a sign of good luck for thousands of years before these crazy assholes ruined it for the rest of us. But were you offended at the gi that GSP walked out with, Jay?
Was I offended at the gi that GSP walked out with? The simple answer is no. No, I wasn't. And I'm not from Japan, so asking me is pretty pointless, is preaching to the converted. I think I can understand how you might be offended, but for me, it makes no difference, and no.
I was not offended, but then again, I was ignorant to the context. I knew that the rising sun was a Japanese war flag, but I didn't really kind of think about the context. The way the Korean Zombie had put it definitely makes a lot of sense as to why he would be offended and people of his Korean descent would be offended. So I think it's good to put that out there. Like I said, I knew it was a flag of war, but I didn't really understand the context. And when you put it like that, it's just, you can see how, he said, hey, it's almost like the equivalent of walking out with like a Nazi-themed gi. And, I have to respect where he's coming from in that.
I wasn't offended at the time because I didn't know what it was. But now that I know what it was, I think it's just absolutely disgusting. Because, you talk about it being a a symbol of war. It wasn't a symbol of war. It was a symbol of what they used when they tortured and killed innocent women and children, just like what Hitler did in World War II. And it's an absolute disgrace. It's not GSP's fault because he got something designed for him, but the company that designed that, they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. I mean, you talk about ignorance of the highest order. Just because you're not from that culture doesn't mean it didn't happen. It wasn't important to those people, and those people suffered stuff that they should never have ever had to suffer, and luckily will never have to suffer. And to be reminded of that by some ignorant arsehole putting a symbol on a piece of clothing, I think it's disgraceful. If I'd have seen the Hitler symbol, having known a bit more about that, and having read a bit more about that, I would have been absolutely horrified. So just because I don't know about this doesn't mean that I'm not just as horrified. So yeah, I thought it was an absolute disgrace.
For sure, and Ray, you will be talking a little bit more to that in this week's Bonehead of the Month, which will start right now.
Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do, it ain't no better.
Alright, my bonehead is pretty simple. It's actually a topic we're going to get to next after the bonehead. It's Dana White going 125 miles an hour on a motorcycle without wearing a helmet on a two-lane road. It was a pretty ridiculous video, pretty ridiculous when you take into effect that they're trying to limit fighters doing things like, you have guys like Donald Cerrone who are angry they can't, go and wakeboard and ride bulls and everything, which I understand the UFC doing that, but Dana White, you have to understand you have a lot of value to the UFC as well, just like these fighters do, and I wouldn't ever go 125 miles an hour on a bike, and maybe that's one of the problems. I couldn't put myself in his shoes, and I know there are lots of people who enjoy that, and that's great. But it just kind of bugs me how Dana White's saying fighters can do this and can't do that, while he himself is going out doing just insanely dangerous things on the no fight vlog, even though it was very entertaining. So Dana White, you're my bonehead, Ray.
My bonehead is Hayabusa for the reasons I've just said. You're talking about war crimes, so you're talking about women and children being tortured and murdered under this emblem, and then they go and put it on someone's gi like it's something cool. It's not cool at all. It's a disgrace. So my bonehead of the week goes to the ignorance of the idiots who work at Hayabusa for putting on that absolute shambles of a gi. They need to be more educated in what they're doing. It was a disgrace.
A secret Easter egg in this episode is Jake decided to call it the Bonehead of the Month instead of the Bonehead of the Week, but we'll let him. So if anybody's listening or listening back, then I did notice that. My Bonehead of the Week is the World Series of Fighting Timekeeper. Now, it's the main event. It was between Arlovsky and Rumble. The whole crowd wanted to see Rumble knock him out pretty damn quickly. But, of course, the other bonehead that I might have picked is the Black Zillions, because we've got to remember they have no wrestling coach. However, that proved throughout the fight, because Rumble couldn't get the takedown. He's supposed to be this, even in the welterweight division, he was a wrestler. He was a guy you couldn't take down. You're forced to stand with, and he knocked you out. That's simple. However, you got to the 40. You heard the 10-second clapper on the bell, and all of a sudden, Rumble went into Rumble mode. He started landing. I think he even dropped Arlovsky. Arlovsky had probably won the first round. Nobody really knows. That round was incredibly tight. All 3 rounds were. And all of a sudden, the fight ended. But if you go back and rewatch that fight, if you start from the beginning to the end, it goes for approximately 5 minutes to 5 minutes 5 seconds, or 5 minutes to 8 seconds, depending on multiple factors, whether you count it from the timekeeper's bell. I mean, if you're going by the timekeeper 10 seconds, then the fight lasts 15 extra seconds. If you go from when the fight starts, then it goes 5 minutes and 8 seconds. So the entire time, Rumble was even able to break Arlovsky's supposed glass jaw, but he actually just, he dislocated it or something. All that happened in these 5 to 8 seconds. The entire fight changed. Even if he rocked him on the first one and that was the beginning of the 10 seconds or whatever, he would have only rocked him once. It's crazy to let one referee think, oh, somebody's got rocked, I want to see this. Oh, wait, it should be the end of the fight. It's ridiculous. It cost Arlovsky the fight. These 5 to 8 seconds were incredibly valuable. They cost... I know that Pete Money's also got World Series of Fighting, so Patrick, but what are you thinking? But right now, I just think World Series of Fighting, that's a huge mistake for somebody to make, and that's my bonehead.
Yeah, Jay, I know you're going with the timekeeper this week. I got to go with the whole organization in general at this point. I mean, what you mentioned is just egregious. It's completely unacceptable. Not to mention, I mean, this event almost got canceled. They didn't have their insurance paperwork together. They didn't have the ring to regulation. They had to get that to regulation probably just hours before the event. The preliminary stream, I know many of us were watching it, and that was, it started like maybe 15, 20 minutes. There were color bars up for like 20 minutes. You could hear the announcers talking about, you know, what they were going to talk about. It was just amateur hour production, just not the most compelling television. I mean, I'm a huge mixed martial arts fan. I want mixed martial arts on TV. The World Series of Fighting, they got to step their game up. They're not a tournament format like Bellator. They don't have anything unique about them aside from the fact they're on NBC Sports. And even that, you know, hey, that's a whole nother subject. The point is, you got to step your game up your production, work on that roster, just get your shit together, because the World Series of Fighting is my bonehead of the week.
Man, I'm gonna have to go with Hayabusa here. I do understand the issues with the World Series of Fighting, and you know, I almost expect things to be janky when, you know, this is the second or third card they've done. It's all right, but when you got a company like Hayabusa, you're so up there. You're sending George St-Pierre out in a fight that millions are going to see. Now, when you put the Rising Sun low, you know, I mean, I'm not a historian, but I know generally the background of that symbol. For no one to think that could be a red flag, I got to give the point to Hayabusa.
This is a strange one because I understand what Pap's saying about World Series of Fighting, but I really enjoyed the event. The stream did do me in a little bit, but then I've watched events with the UFC where the stream's not been very good either. So that wasn't something new. And same with the commentators. I remember watching the UFC event with the commentators, and the UFC commentators. You could hear the UFC commentators talking before it went live as well. So that wasn't new either. I didn't know about the timekeeping thing, but yeah, that's pretty mental. So I think I'll go with the World Series of Fighting timekeeper with what Jay said.
Yeah, the timekeeper. I still can't believe it when I was watching it. That it just, to me, it changed the entire fight. And when I first watched the fight, I was like, wow, that was a close fight. Then to find that out, I was just like, this is ridiculous. The only dominant 10 seconds of the round weren't even supposed to be in the round, and the timekeeper wasn't even. He must have just got excited and wanted to see a finish instead of actually paying attention. But whatever. I would go with Patrick's World Series of Fighting, but I think it's their second event, so they have got some mistakes to be made. I mean, timekeeper as a judge, he's supposed to be paid, he's supposed to be on the athletic commission, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think their commentary, as Ray said, is going to improve. I think Dana, if he wants to kill himself, I don't know what's up with him, but he's already got that disease with meningitis. I can't remember what it is, so he could lose his balance at any second. Meniere's, he could lose his balance and faint at any stage. So he's clearly just trying to live life to the full, and he's got a company to run. If he wants to die, then that's his own fault. But if a fighter dies, then it's going to be all over the paper. And I don't really know what's going on with him. But I will agree with Ray. And I originally thought it didn't mean anything, but Ray really did make me change my mind. So I'm going with the idiots not checking their facts. That's always a stupid thing to do.
I think I'm going to have to go with Hayabusa as well on this one. Just an unacceptable oversight with a company of their stature. Like Ray said, I mean, they've been around for a long time. They're definitely one of the most recognizable names in anime clothing and lifestyle apparel, gear, all that stuff. They're a big brand. They've been around for a long time. They should know what they're doing. They should have people on this. I'll go with Hayabusa as the bonehead of the week.
And it looks like they will take it 3-1. And I love that, them calling it lifestyle apparel. Since when we're just clothes. Just call it clothes, son. But Hayabusa giving the green light to that atrocious ski that GSP came out in. They are boneheads. And that brings it into the bonehead of the week. Not the month, the week. We will go over a few news items real quick before we get to Guess That Tweet. And the one thing we do know about Guess That Tweet is MMA Mental is going to get a point. You got all MMA Mental guys this week. I guess I'll say, unfortunately. But, I mentioned it during the Bonehead, so I won't get too deep into it now. Dana White going 125 miles an hour on that bike. Especially him ratcheting down on a bunch of fighters for being a little too crazy and out there. Is Dana being a little hypocritical here, or am I making a mountain out of a molehill?
No, I would say that is hypocritical. But then again, maybe I'm being hypocritical because I've driven 125 before in my Benz. Probably shouldn't have been doing it, but hey, let me tell you what, I'd rather do 125 in a Benz than on a fucking street bike. That's not smart to do. He's definitely an asset to the sport of mixed martial arts, and it would just be fucking terrible if there were an accident like that and his life was cut short for unnatural reasons like that. Heck, and plus I'm just a firm believer of leading by example. If you want your fighters to conduct themselves in a certain way, then you should do the same. So, yeah, I agree with you, Jake. Definitely hypocritical.
I think it's very stupid because obviously people look up to him and what he's doing, and people are going to follow what he's doing. It's definitely a stupid thing to do. Hypocritical, yeah, it probably is hypocritical. I know he's come down pretty heavy on fighters for wanting to do extreme stuff. Obviously, we know about Donald Cerrone, probably the most publicised one. He wanted to do. Did he want to do free falling or something? And he wouldn't let him do it. But yeah, it is hypocritical. It is pretty stupid as well, to be fair, because I think Dana White would probably be the biggest loss to MMA over any fighter at the moment. I think he's certainly a pioneer. He's probably the man that's got us the sport as a whole. The reason we've got MMA is because of Dana White.
I agree with Ryan. Yeah, he's the key man. If we want to see MMA in the Olympics, he's got to be the front runner, since he seems to, whatever he wants to do, he's able to do, except for get Fedor in the UFC, of course. Is it hypocritical? Yes, it's hypocritical. I already kind of said it whilst I was doing the Bonehead, and I think I've spoken quite a lot. So, yeah, it was hypocritical, and he shouldn't have done it. But he did, so whatever.
Yeah, he did, and quite frankly, no one's going to be able to tell him otherwise. We will move on. Tough episodes 9 and 10. We not only saw the wild card match between Bubba McDaniel and Kevin Casey, where Kevin won, but we also got to see last week 2 of the quarterfinal matchups. We got to see Dylan Andrews and Luke Barnett in a very close fight that Dylan Andrews won via TKO late in the fight, and we also saw what was the other fight? I'm totally blanking on it now. Kelvin Gastelum winning his fight as well. Ronda Rousey. Yep. Yep. Ronda Rousey came and visited him, and that jacked him up enough to end up winning the fight. It was something Ramsey's actually noticed. If you look at the Tough 17 poster, it almost looks like they're setting up Uriah versus Josh Salmon in the finals, and shit, I'm blanking again, and Kelvin Gastelum versus Josh Salmon in the third place match, which I think is a pretty interesting observation.
You said Josh twice there.
Oh, sorry, I meant Uriah Hall versus Dylan Andrews and Josh Salmon versus Kelvin Gastelum for the third place match. But, what did you all think of these last couple episodes of Tough, Ray?
I'm one of these that has always loved Tough. You know, even the seasons that people say weren't that good, I've always enjoyed. This has been a brilliant season. I was obviously gutted to see Luke lose. I don't know why King Casey was given the wild card, because, you know, he said he had some problems with something which caused him to stop fighting. The only problem I thought he had was with his heart. He just didn't seem to have the heart to be in there. You know what I mean? So I don't know why he was in that fight in the first place. I think both the guys picked the wild card with the wrong guys, but I've already stated that. I don't know why Chael Sonnen chose King Casey, to be fair. I obviously know why John Jones chose Bubba. That was nothing to do with his fight, but it was to do with the fact they were mates. But yeah, for the fights this week, Calvin looked absolutely amazing. I mean, I know it was a short fight, but he come out there and he got a very impressive knockout. And then obviously we had Luke Barnett absolutely devastated. It was a close fight. It was great to see him get given round 2, even though he was fighting off of his back, because he was more active. He was throwing more strikes from the back position. And I think Dana was pleased to see him get given that round. I'm pretty sure Luke's going to be on the finale from what I'm seeing on Twitter. I don't know who against. But yeah, it was another 2 great episodes. I can't wait for next week. I hope Bubba flaps it.
I've been enjoying the shows. I've just seen the TUF 17, the poster, and if that's a spoiler, I'm so angry right now. Why would they do this? It seems like they failed at keeping spoilers out this season. I mean, first of all, we knew that somebody is going to kill everyone. Then we know who's in the ambulance. And now we know the finalists. What's the point? Like, why are they still showing the episodes? I think that Bubba's got his date with. He's on his. I can't even remember what it's called. He's on his death row. Yeah, he's waiting on the bench right now. They're going to take him.
Destiny.
Yes, he's going to get finished. He knows it, especially if you're going in with the mindset that you're going to get killed. You're just going to get killed. It's just inevitable. The show's been good, but I'm surprised. I think it's mainly because they've got middleweights in. They've had a lot of lightweights. They've had a lot of lighter-weight guys. So the fights have been more competitive, which means that, you know, some people aren't into these competitive fights. I mean, people found Henderson versus Machida boring. They found Ritchie versus Fletcher boring. These weren't boring fights. I think people just want to see finishes. And when you go for the middleweights, you go for the light heavyweights, and you go for the heavyweights, you're going to get them. And I think that's why people have enjoyed this season so much. And I think, yeah, it's been a great season. And yeah, I think that's what I want to say, really.
For sure, yeah. Patrick?
Jay, you definitely make a great point. As you get into the higher weight classes, you're going to see that rate of finishes go up, which is definitely conducive to the ratings and the perceived overall quality of the season. I have not got a chance to catch up on the season, though, since the first episode. I'm very bummed. I like the new format. I'm just going to have to catch the marathon over here in the States. You know, they generally do the marathon of episodes the day before the finale. So I'm going to have to try and catch that, because I have enjoyed what I've seen thus far.
For sure, and that brings us to our next topic, which is also Tough related. Dana White coming on the end of the FX broadcast to announce that Ronda Rousey will be the next Tough coach, squaring off against the winner of Miesha Tate versus Kat Zingano, and that's not it. You're going to have male and female fighters under the same house. It is going to be craziness. Rogan said it best off of the cuff. Cats and dogs in the same house. I don't know about that, Dana. Shit, man. I don't know. I don't know if it's a very good idea. Obviously, romance is going to be a part of it. A part of this tough, which you rarely see. Sorry, Jay's bothering me. UFC 162 fights. We will announce some new announced fights at the end of the show. But yeah, what do you all think about having men and women under the same roof on Tough? Ridiculous.
This is me, isn't it? I was about to say I love sex, but I guess you guys kind of know that. So yeah, I'm interested in the season.
I know it firsthand.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm sure you all know it firsthand. I get around far too much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We might get off in about 9 months' time. We're going to get our first season of TUF Babies. We'll see how that goes down, especially when they put gloves on them. The gloves will be about the same size as the babies themselves. I think it's a very good marketing ploy. I think it's going to be interesting to see if there's any women bigger than the men's, because they're all going to be 135 pounds. It's just curious right now. I think, of course, I'll watch it. I'm not too interested in the coaches yet, maybe because I don't really know these Tate versus Zingano. I don't really know who they are, but it'll be interesting. I'm sure. I have no doubt in the back of my mind that I know that Patrick's talking next, but Ray will have enough to say on this. Is he loves TUF, and so do I, but I'm interested right now because I love sex, and that's as simple as it goes.
I'm definitely looking forward to this one. I definitely want them to go back to the 135-pound weight class. They only had one season where they did it. It was the 135 and 145-pound mix. That was one of the best seasons that I've enjoyed as of late. That was probably the best season, in my opinion, since the heavyweight season. So it's going to be real good. Hopefully they're going to get some good talent in there. Same for the women's side. It's going to be awesome, mixing that dynamic of men and women fighters in the same house. I mean, this just has the ability to be as epic as any of the seasons of The Ultimate Fighter we've ever seen. I mean, I don't want to say this could be as groundbreaking as the first season, but damn, I'm excited, and I'm definitely going to have my DVR and stay up week to week on this one.
To be fair, when it comes to me and Tough, if you told me that next season's coaches were Jake Walters and Jay Jeans, I'd be excited. I just love Tough. I think it's great that Ronda Rousey's going to be a coach. I think her fight against Liz Carmouche was just an epic fight. And it's about time that women's MMA got the respect that it deserves. There's a lot of female fighters out there that are working their way up through the system. Obviously, people like Ronda are at the top. But they don't get the credit that they deserve. They work just as hard as any man that's in the sport. I mean, they work so hard to get where they are. And I think they deserve the limelight. Misha Tate and Kat Zingano. I've seen Misha Tate fight. I've not seen Kat Zingano fight, but I'm looking forward to seeing them fight. I think it's going to be a great fight. I mean, it's a great motivation for both these girls, knowing that whoever wins this is going to be a coach on Ultimate Fighter, which is going to give them so much exposure. Men and women in the same house. It's different. It's definitely different. I'm looking forward to it because I think it'll be interesting to see how hard they work. I mean, we've seen some guys in the past, and let's be honest with you, some of them have been absolute fairies, and they end up showing themselves up. But it'll be interesting to see how the women come across and how the work ethic comes across, the difference between the male and the female, because when you see guys struggling to cut weight and you get all these excuses and I'm missing my girl and I'm missing my kids, and they're there to change their lives, and all you get sometimes is absolute BS. So it'd be interesting to see. I bet the women in some of the cases will be mentally tougher than the men. So yeah, I can't wait to see. I'm really looking forward to it.
MMA mentally tougher. Oh, sorry. I thought Patrick was, but he is not. It's just me. So we'll move on, I guess. And does that bring us to this week's Guess That Tweet? I think it does. You all ready for some guess that tweet action?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Go on then.
Nope.
Alright, this week, like I mentioned before, it's all MMA mental. But I do have a bit of tweets that I think y'all will have a couple struggles with. We will see. Let's get straight to the first one, which talks about my hometown. Sorry, I was trying to turn down the volume there for the game.
Before you start, Jake, I've got a little bit of a twist to throw in for you.
All right.
right? Because obviously this week it's looking like we're definitely going to get the point.
It is.
Right, if you do it where you read a tweet out, if all of us get the tweet wrong, you get the point.
So it just needs to go down on one of the tweets, correct?
So basically, if you read out one tweet and all three of us get it wrong, you get that 1 point. If one of us gets it right, we get the point.
All right. I like it.
So we're competing against each other anyway.
Yeah.
We still want to win, so we'll win this. But we'll win this week's game. But for the actual score to go on to this week, for every one that all of us get wrong, you get the point instead.
Yeah, son, I like it. I like it a lot. All right.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's do it. The first one, talking about my hometown of Tampa, Florida, and it reads, why is Tampa so cold? Which I can agree with 100%. It's been down in the 50s here. It's like March. Tampa, the Bellator event is actually in Tampa. Your boy would have gone, but the Roundtable means a lot to him. But moving on. Why is Tampa so cold? I'll give you 4 flyweights to choose from: John Dodson, Joseph Benavidez, Ian McCall, and Demetrius Johnson.
I'll guess Ian McCall.
Ooh, tough one right off the bat. I'll say Demetrius Johnson.
I think, as far as I know, only one of those guys. I think he lives in Tampa, although he trains out of New Mexico. But I think, as far as I know, the only one of those guys who has any association with Tampa is John Dodson. So for that reason, I'm picking him.
I was so close to getting the point, but Jay got it right. It is John Dodson. He actually doesn't train in Tampa, but because of Bellator, he is in town, cornering one of his teammates.
Yeah, he trains in New Mexico, of course, but I thought he lived down there.
Yeah.
I know that was Cali anyway, but anyway, moving on.
True enough. All right, so Jay is the only one to get the point there. All right, the next one. Fucking Phil DeFries. His feet are the same size of gallon water bottles. Hashtag slob, and then a picture's attached. So it's somebody talking about how big Phil DeFries' feet are. Is it Mike Easton, Ross Pearson, Luke Barnett, or Stormin Norman Park?
I don't even know how you came across this tweet. I'm going to go with Ross Pearson. Go on, why not?
Okay, Jay, if you got Ross Pearson, I'll take Mike the Hulk Easton.
I was going to go for Easton because he's the only American. The other three are Brits. Who are the other two that haven't been picked, Jake?
The choices were Mike Easton, Ross Pearson, and those are the 2 taken so far. And then you have Luke Barnett and Norman Park.
Well, obviously we know Phil DeFries is from the northeast, so obviously he does probably train with Ross. I also know he trains at Jackson's. So do any of those guys train at Jackson's? I'm going to go for Easton being the only Yank, so I'm going to pick Easton.
Alright, so we got Patrick and Ray taking Easton, Jay taking Pearson. Jay on top of his game picks another correct choice. It was Pearson. That moves Jay to 2. Ray and Patrick and myself at 0.
I completely forgot that Pearson trains with Cruz and that lot. Oh my god, I got lucky with that one. I was an idiot.
Yeah, I actually went over Phil's Twitter just to see the people he was training with. So I was picking just people he trained with. Alright, the next one. And it's a douchey tweet, so I picked all douches to choose from. Alright, is it, and this is the tweet, by the way. It all comes down to the last person you think of at night. That's where your heart is. What a douchey tweet. Is it Mike Ricci, Josh Koscheck, Rory McDonald, or John Jones?
Read me those 4 names again. Mike Ricci.
It's dripping with douche. Is it Mike Ricci, Josh Koscheck, Rory McDonald, or John Jones?
It's a bit of an older tweet, so let's go for Josh Koscheck, but it is a gay tweet.
Yeah, oh boy, I'll have to go with Mike Ricci.
You picked a lot of a lot of controversial guys in there. You picked John Jones, who kind of wanted it to be. You picked Mike Ricci, who's kind of, because he fought recently, he's in a lot of people's minds. Rory McDonald, I wouldn't follow in a million years. I'm going to have to say Josh Koscheck, because he's one of those guys, isn't he? He's a bit weird like that. So go on, I'll go with Josh Koscheck.
So Jay goes with Koscheck. Ray and Patrick, who'd you pick again? Sorry, someone texted me and it completely took my attention off who you guys picked.
I had Koscheck as well. And Patrick had Ricci.
Man, I'm not getting a point because somebody's always picking it right. And this time it was P Money. It was Mike Ricci with that douchey tweet. Which brings us 1 point for Patrick, 2 for Jay, and 0 points for my buddy Ray and I. Alright, the fourth tweet out of 5, and if it's tied after 5, we go to overtime. Here we go. Had some more cupping and ART treatment. Feeling great now. And attached is a picture of the guy's back after he had it cupped. Cupping is an Asian technique that uses suction, and it looks really painful. And it is a guy fighting on the Sweden card. Is it Gegard Mousasi, Ross Pearson, Ryan Couture, or Alexander Gustafsson?
Well, Pearson managed to win me some points in the last one out of pure luck. I only just remembered then that Pearson was even fighting on this next card. So he won me last time. I think Jake loves Pearson for some reason. He's probably the only one of these guys he follows. So I'm going to go with Pearson. Come on now. I'm going to win this one.
Oh my gosh. This one's tough. I am just, I'm kind of drawing a blank here. I think. Can I have those again? I know Mousasi and Gustafsson was on there. Actually, you know what? Screw it. I'll just go with Mousasi.
Yep, I picked from 2 different fights. Is it Gegard or Gustafsson? And then is it Pearson or Ryan Couture?
Patrick, you've made your pick, haven't you?
You're going with Gegard?
Yeah, you know what? I think I'll just roll the dice on this one. I'll still go with Gegard.
Yeah, I'm going, because it's a gay tweet, I'm going to go for a gay guard. So I'll go for Gegard.
Oh, shit. Man, your boy Jay is on his game tonight, and he locked up the victory by taking Ross Pearson. Jay, congrats. Ross is the correct answer. You're up 3-1. And we'll do these final tweets just out of parity's sake, even though Jay already has it locked up. I mean, Jesus Christ, Jay, you've been in, what, like 7 of these now, and you've gotten first or second place in every one?
This is 6. 3 wins, 3 seconds.
Jesus Christ.
I'm coming for you, Jay. You think you're Anderson Silva, but you ain't messed with me yet. I'm the Chris Weidman of this show. You'll call me the John Fitch to begin with. Then it was Chael Sonnen, and then it was Uriah Faber. Now it's Chris Weidman, mate.
I'm calling the fix. Where's Ramses?
Ramses is currently doing some undercover stuff for the government that I can't really speak about. Jay, a big congrats. You actually now have more victories than Ray, and you're tied with Patrick now with 3 career victories. That's true.
I'm MMA mental, Ray. Like, I'm single-handedly bringing it back for you guys against the MMA.
You've upset Patrick is gone. What have you said?
Wow, way to be a douche.
Oh, he's back.
MMA podcast, be prepared. We're coming for you. Just needed that one extra member, man.
Apparently, man, Jesus Christ. So currently it is myself reigning above all the rest of you dumb motherfuckers with 9. Ramses with 4, Patrick and Jay with 3, Ray with 2, and Chris and Dave with 1 apiece. We will move on now, I guess, to the last 5th and 6th tweets. Here we go. Nick Diaz fighting style is 209, bitch. That's it. And I feel like I use this grouping of people every time, just each time it's someone else tweeting. Was it Forrest Griffin, Joseph Benavidez, Miguel Torres, or Nick the Tooth?
I'll go for Nick the Tooth.
I'm resigned to failure, so I'll go with Joseph Benavidez.
Am I still playing or not? Or what?
Yeah, you won and you can keep on playing.
I don't know. I'll go with somebody I don't follow on Twitter. I will go with Nick the Tooth. Go on then.
Ray?
Well, I've already said Nick the Tooth.
Sorry. It was, actually, Miguel Torres tweeting out Nick Diaz fighting style is 209, bitch. And finally, we got Adventures of Black Man in London. And it's a black UFC fighter tweeting a picture of himself in London. Is it Mighty Mouse, Tyrone Spong, Rashad Evans, or Rampage Jackson?
You said it was a black UFC fighter. Only two of them are UFC fighters.
Sorry, a black MMA fighter.
Make your mind up. UFC is not MMA, and MMA is not UFC.
I see his bluff, and I'm going to go with Rashad Evans.
Jay, you're on fire tonight, sir. Damn it, I picked Demetrius Johnson before and he didn't pay off. I'm going to go with him now.
So it was Tyrone Spong, Rashad Evans, Quinton Rampage. Let's go for Jackson because I know he trains in the UK.
The answer is Rashad Evans. Jay on his game tonight.
Yeah,
and that
Jackson was a good one though, and I think you deliberately put that one in. I think he's moved back to America now that he's finished training at Wolves there and stuff.
I did. I threw that in there because he's black mainly, but yeah, also I guess because he trained in England or something. But yeah, that does it for Guess That Tweet. Ray, any more words of wisdom before we move on?
No.
Or sorry, Jay, I meant to talk to the winner, not the loser.
You said Ray.
I prefer.
I know
Ray.
I said Ray. Damn it.
Can we get Patrick to say something on my behalf as well?
Patrick, you have anything to say?
Yes, you know what? I'm glad you asked. There isn't someone more deserving for this win than Jay. He puts in the time. He puts in the hard work. He puts in the effort every fucking week. He's been on a tear since he rejoined the Roundtable. He's been massacring it. Good job to you, sir. You're on fire, just like NBA Jam, Super Nintendo style. So good on you, mate.
And it's certainly nice to get a win on your last ever appearance on the MMA Roundtable. Well done.
Thanks, guys. And Jake, if I'm ever on this show again, if you'll let me back now that it's starting to catch up with you. I know that clearly Dave must have won that one time and then you never let him back, and Chris probably did the same thing. You're in fear of your championship. You're going to retire. You're going to not let this show go on. I know your game plan. There's a few people who've done that in the past. You're going to drop the belt. You're going to retire before the fact I even get anywhere near you.
I mean, Dave won, and then all of a sudden somebody put a bullet through his laptop, and it didn't work anymore, and he couldn't join us anymore.
Was it his laptop or Dave?
And then Chris won. I'm not sure. And then Chris won, and his apartment burnt down. And Jay, all I'm saying is, if you have any pets, I'd keep them inside at night.
No one's heard from Ramses for the last couple of weeks either. Apparently he's on some secret government mission, but I don't know.
I just thought that as well. Yeah, he's after me, isn't he? He's on his plane right now. He just needs to know the confirmation of whether I won this week or not.
He's hiding behind one of your curtains. I'd watch.
He's currently on a dual prop plane with an attaché case with a sniper rifle in it. That's all I'm going to say. But Jay, I do agree. Congrats. You got 3 wins and 3 second place finishes and 6 appearances. I don't know if you're breaking out the Google during things or something. I'm not trying to accuse you of roiding like Diaz did GSP, but I smell something fishy, and I'm going to figure out what's going down over there. No, but really, after I'm saying it after accusing you of cheating, but no, you're kicking major ass. You're cheating. All right, we got 3 more news topics before we put a bow on it. Great job. You said you were a lot like Chris Weidman before, and that's actually the next topic. Chris Weidman apparently waiting on the Anderson Silva fight to sign an extension. I guess this is the last fight on his contract. He will stay in the UFC win or loss, but apparently Weidman thinks his value is going to raise tremendously after beating Anderson Silva. I don't agree. I think Weidman, it seems like every time somebody fights a guy like Anderson or GSP, it's, oh, this is why he's the best stylist. Oh, this is why Dan Hardy is going to beat GSP. Weidman, in my opinion, doesn't have a chance. And I think this is a stupid move. Why are you going to wait until a loss? And more so, why, have a little bit of what is the word? Not humbleness, but humility. Humility, yeah. I was saying humbleness, but I was like, that word doesn't exist. Humility. Yeah, you gotta have a little bit of humility. You're going up against the greatest fighter who ever lived. I don't care. Of course, you think you're gonna win. That's the mindset everyone would be in. But just look at the facts on paper. You're fighting the best guy ever. Get your extension now, not later. I think that's dumb. What do you guys think, Patrick?
You got some great points, Jake. Truthfully, just for me, if I'm negotiating, I look at it like this. He's getting paid, according to him, approximately $28 to show, $28 to win. Of course, who knows about sponsors, how that's going for him. But as far as this UFC contract, that's what it is. Do you want to fight your next fight making that much money, or do you want to make more money in your next fight? For me, that's just fucking simple. And, Jake, as you alluded to, you don't know what's going to happen in that fight. It's awesome to have that confidence, and that's what you need to be a champion. You need that supreme confidence. But I'm sure a few of the guys out of the 15 that Anderson Silva has fought in the UFC, counting the fact that he fought Chael twice, I'm sure a few of those guys were confident that they were going to win. And none of them have. So be that as it may, plus you don't know what's going to happen. You could have a Corey Hill leg break. You could have a Sean Salmon or a fucking Nate Quarry neck breakage. You don't know what's going to happen in there. Get as much fucking money as you can for the fight that's right in front of you. Plus, if you win the championship anyways, you could probably renegotiate after that again. I don't agree with it.
This is a strange one, because we just had a situation recently with Mark Hunt where there was rumours of him not wanting to take a fight because he was still on a lesser wage. I think what Weidman's doing is smart. And don't forget, Weidman will be being advised. This isn't a decision he's making by himself. At the end of the day, if he's getting 28 grand to fight, win or lose, if he loses his next fight against Anderson Silva, which many people expect him to, I think he's got a good chance of winning. If he loses it but puts on a great showing, there's a good chance he'll be able to earn more money. If he wins it, the potential of what he can earn is going to skyrocket. If he's already signed a contract, that's not going to be up for negotiation until that contract's up again. That's how things work. We've seen that with the Mark Hunt JDS fight. So yeah, I don't think Weidman's got anything to lose by holding on for a better deal, because if 28 is the minimum of what he's going to get, win or lose, then worst case scenario, he walks away with the same deal now. But the potential of what he could get if he wins is epic. So I understand why he's doing it personally.
It's an interesting situation. I think, he's being smart. All he's got to do is be wary of the fact that if he does end up standing with Silva, and if he doesn't go for a takedown or anything, he could end up getting less money. He's just got to try and fight his game plan for one round, and he'll be able to earn an extra couple of grand per fight. The fight's going to be interesting, and I know that we're going to have plenty of time to talk about it, and it's a huge fight. It's Anderson Silva. Whenever he fights is awesome. I mean, the only way Stephen Bonner was going to win that fight was if if Anderson Silva got struck by lightning or some crazy shit. I think the fight's incredible, and I think you guys have brought up some good points with the Corey Hill stuff, but the same thing could happen to Anderson Silva. He is human. He can get fedored. Anything can happen in mixed martial arts, and I think Weidman's got a serious chance, so why not? You got to have that self-belief in yourself, and I think he does have it. He's confident. Everybody knows the game plan, just nobody's been able to do it.
Yeah, and Jay, I definitely agree. You do have to believe in yourself, but there's a certain point where, where you've got to separate your emotions from the business side of things. And from the business side of things, I don't think it's a very good choice, Ray. I totally agree. More the upside and downside. You know, if you beat Anderson, you're probably going to get millions more than if you didn't sign after. But if he loses, I think, which is a much greater chance, maybe he makes the difference is 5 times less on the losing side, but at the same time, I just think the odds of him winning are so astronomically high, and a lot of people disagree, or I guess astronomically low would be the correct way to phrase it, but a lot of people are buying in. I am not, and I think it's kind of silly. Another kind of silly bit of news. Melvin Gillard apparently left the Black Zillions camp, which, the Black Zillions weren't very happy with that, but he left to go back to Jackson's. He left Jackson's with Rashad Evans when he set up the Black Zillions camp, and apparently he went back and Jackson's voted on it, and they're not letting him back, so Melvin Gillard is sort of campless. I think he recently fired his manager too, so Gillard is literally a free agent in any way you can think of it, other than the fact that he's still with the UFC. He doesn't have a camp, doesn't have a manager, and apparently is being tried on assault charges in New Mexico. Not very good news coming out of Melvin Gillard's camp. What is going on with all of this craziness, Ray?
Gillard's always been a bit of a loose coin. He's one of these guys that's he's very outspoken. I mean, he comes to fight, win or lose. He's a strange fighter because he's as good as he's on his feet, and he's got amazing power for a lightweight. His ground game has always been bad. The problem is when you leave somewhere, if you leave on bad terms, they're not going to want you back. So whenever you leave somewhere, you've always got to try and leave on the best terms that you can. So if things don't go your way in your new place, you can always fall back on your old place. And for whatever reason, he didn't leave that Jackson's in a good way because they don't want him back. And now that he's left Black Zillions, maybe they won't want him back either. So he is kind of up the creek without a paddle, as they say.
Oh, the Black Zillions. Let's not even get me started on the word Black Zillion, let alone Melvin Gillard. I can't stand anything that the Black Zillions decide to do. And I think leaving the Black Zillions is a good choice, but now nobody wants you back. It's quite ironic how it works, really. I'm saying to leave the Black Zillions. A fighter decides to leave them, and he can't go back to where he started. He's now screwed. He hasn't been working his wrestling at all. He needs to go to a place like AKA. He needs to start working back on his wrestling because he wouldn't have trained it at all. If Rumble can't take down Arlovski, then that's one thing. But nobody's been successful in their wrestling since joining that camp, and it's just humorous to me. I don't know where he goes from here, but I think Jackson's clearly got a reason for it. So we'll see what happens.
I have a hard time really commenting on Melvin Gillard. I've heard so many things, about him smoking crack in the past and doing other things, and maybe that kind of explains some of his behavior. But honestly, I just don't even know. It's been the news that he's got like 2 assault charges, that has an April court date, like April 10th, and that there's 3 additional misdemeanor charges for missing court dates and stuff like that. But again, I can't really comment too much on that just because I don't know the particulars. Of course, criminal assault charges never look good for an MMA fighter. Doesn't look good for the support. Doesn't look good for that fighter as a person. And Jackson's wouldn't take it back. That's where he had his best success. So who knows? He's definitely got to try and get his legal issues sorted out first, and try and get with a good camp. He's one of those guys. He's got the tools. He's had the tools for a while. The mental game just seems to be somewhere else, and that's such a huge part of MMA and the high levels of all athletic competition, I'd say.
Yeah, the only positive I can take out of Melvin Goulard's troubled past is that it leaves a small chance out there that we will see a second rendition of someone saying, Rogan, Joe Rogan, you wanna know something about me? I smoke rocks. And I know I killed that quote because I stumbled in the middle of it thinking of the words, but you know where I'm going with that. Kind of racist, but oh well. Finally, we got Uriah Faber and Dominic Cruz. Faber's never really been on the Cruz side of things, but he actually came out and said, even though the guy punches like a weirdo, I think he should keep his belt. Something that I disagree with. And look, I feel really bad for Dominic Cruz, and yes, when he comes back, the way he dominated the bantamweight belt and that whole weight class, I think yes, he should get a crack at the belt. But look at the last time the guy fought. I mean, Jesus Christ, his last fight, I believe, I'm bringing it up now, I believe was against it was against Mighty Mouse. Since Mighty Mouse fought Dominic Cruz, he's fought 4 times. He fought Ian McCall twice, Joseph Benavidez, and then John Dodson. It was October 2011, and folks, we're about 6 months from it being October 2013, and that would be 2 years since Cruz last fought. And look, it was a freak thing, and I don't like Cruz as a fighter, but I hope he comes back 100%, because he's a good fighter, and the injury is just so weird. He got an ACL tear and got it replaced, and it was a cadaver ACL, and it didn't take, and his body rejected it, and he had to get the surgery done all over again after multiple months of rehab. Really freakish, but I do think Cruz should be stripped of his title, and although stripped is a bad word, you know what? You haven't fought in almost 2 years, and I'm sorry, but somebody defending an interim belt for like twice, that's like bringing a guy on as an interim coach and having him coach the entire season and refusing to stop calling him the interim coach. It's all just pretty silly to me. Jay, Patrick, Ray, what do you guys think?
I think it's torture. If you put him in there, it's human torture if you just decide, right, you're coming off a 2-year double injury or whatever, you're supposed to now be the same level you are beforehand. GSP was an exceptional circumstance. First of all, he wasn't out nearly as long. The fighter isn't anybody different. I mean, Faber Cruz will probably happen. It should happen. If Cruz comes back, that's the fight I think makes the most sense, is Faber Cruz. But to put Cruz straight in there against the guy, as you said, retained the belt twice, you are fighting a guy who is literally the best in the world at that division, and you've been out for 2 years with injuries. You're not going to be perfect. Even GSP, he's still not perfect himself. He gassed in the Diaz fight. He got rocked in the Condit fight. He's not a perfect fighter. He's still in the reconstruction stage. To put him in against one of the pound for pound fighters, it's absurd. I think I can understand why he'd get stripped of it. I think it's horrible when a fighter does get stripped of a belt, because I always feel that he needs to make it the undisputed belt, but he should not be fighting Barao when he gets back. And I think that's the reality of it. I think he needs to fight Faber in a 3-round fight. He's got to shake the ring rust off. And no way on earth do I want to see Faber get jump the gun in front of Barao. I think Barao deserves it, but he should not be fighting him. It would be too painful, and that's just how I feel.
Wow, that was really well said, Jay. I really couldn't agree more. It's a terrible circumstance. I seem to be one of the few Dominic Cruz fans. I always enjoyed him when he was on the WEC. His last fight, Jake, like you mentioned, was against Demetrius Johnson, which, if I'm not mistaken, was on Versus, which was, I think it was the last Versus show. And
you're right, correct.
Which was just cool to see him back on that channel defending his 135-pound UFC title. I respect the guy as a tactician, as a fighter. Heck, I think he's got finishes more recently than GSP. I don't know. and it's just terrible. But at this point, something does need to be done. Jay, like you mentioned, Renan Barão, he's already won and defended the interim belt. It's time to make Dominic Cruz come back. If he does come back, I think Jay, you said it perfectly. Having him fight Uriah Faber, he's perennially one of the best. So putting that match together, having the rubber match, makes a lot of sense. Give him that opportunity to shake off some ring rust, and I think it is time to make Barão the legit champion, though.
I think there needs to be a rule in. There needs to be a set rule of how long a champion can not defend his bout for before he's stripped. Because it holds the whole division up. And yeah, we know we've got Renan Barão as the interim, and I understand what Jay's saying about the Cruz-Barão fight, but if Cruz isn't stripped, then Cruz's first fight back has got to be Renan Barão, because that's, Renan Barão's earned the right to fight for the title. So if he isn't stripped, then that should be the fight. If people feel that Dominic Cruz can't fight Renan Barão, then Dominic Cruz shouldn't be the champion. But I think there should be a rule in about how long. I think maybe 18. Well, I think 12 months is long enough, to be fair. If the champion doesn't defend his bout in 12 months, he should be stripped. I'm more than happy for that guy to then, his first fight back, to be for the championship. That's fine. But he shouldn't be the champion if he hasn't defended in 12 months. That's what I think.
Yeah, and you have guys, more guys recently who have, been injured and been on the rack for a while. You had GSP on the rack for a year. You had, none are jumping in my mind now, but it's happened before. And Ray, I do agree, whether it's 12 months, I think 18. I personally like the 18-month rule because, I definitely can see 12, but at the same time, in a situation like George St-Pierre, I'm glad he gets to keep his streak going. And a ACL tear is very common in sports and typically takes about a year, along with training, maybe 14 months to come back. But it should be somewhere between 12 and 18. Cruz is, I think he's at 18 now, and I think it's nearing 24, which Ray, that almost puts me back to 12, because I think Cruz has been out so long, he should definitely have the title stripped at this point. But I do agree with all of you on certain points, and it's something that the UFC really needs to address, not just with Cruz, but with other injuries going forward. The last topic I wanted to talk about before we wrap things up, Jay, you were talking about some UFC 162 announcements. UFC 162, I actually don't have the date and time and location in front of me, but I do have two fight announcements in front of me, and they are both pretty good ones. You got Cub Swanson taking on Dennis Seaver, and you've got Frankie Edgar taking on Charles Oliveira. I've got the card in front of me now. UFC 162, Silva versus Weidman, July 6th in Las Vegas. You obviously have that middleweight championship fight. You got Munoz versus Tim Boetsch. Liben's going to be on the card. You're going to have a featherweight bout in Korean Zombie versus Ricardo Lamas. Lots of great lower weight fights, like I mentioned, the Chan Sung Jung Lamas fight, and now these two being mentioned. We'll talk about Edgar versus Oliveira in a second, but let's start off with Cub Swanson versus Dennis Seaver, a fight that I have Swanson winning, and I know Patrick's gonna be on my side with this, coming from the same town as Cub, but Cub's younger, he's more explosive, he's quicker, and I do like Dennis Seaver, but at times he just seems very plodding and a little too cerebral for his own good. Swanson, you can't just plod around against Swanson. He's jumping around, running around everywhere, and I think after this fight, Swanson will be one step closer to that rematch against Jose Aldo. What do you all think, Patrick?
Yeah, those are some great fight announcements. Swanson versus Seaver. I want to say that fight was going to get made before. I want to say that maybe a Seaver injury canceled it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making things up in my head.
It should have happened at Wembley
either way, that's going to be a sick fight. I got to go for Swanson in this one. I don't think Seaver's going to try and take it down. Seaver looked insanely good against Nam Fan. That was just a fantastic ass whooping, the likes of which we rarely get the pleasure of seeing. But I think we've seen Seaver's chin be a little questionable. And Cub, I'm telling you, he's been hitting the weights hard. It looks like he's just getting swole up at 145. He's been hurting people, a lot of knockouts lately. He's been just doing some damage, and I think he's gonna find Seaver's chin. As for
Frankie
Edgar and Charles Oliveira,
let's wait until we go around the second time before that fight. But Ray actually was adding in that original Swanson-Seaver fight was going to be in Wembley. But let's tackle this first fight and then move on to the second before we close it out. Jay, what are your Ray is next. Ray, what are your thoughts on Seaver-Swanson?
Yeah, Seaver-Swanson should have happened at Wembley, but obviously Seaver had to pull out, and Dustin Poirier stepped in and Swanson won. I think Swanson-Seaver is going to be a great fight. I was looking forward to seeing it the first time. I think Swanson will win. I think Swanson has looked absolutely amazing on his current run. I think the winner of this fight will be the number one contender, but I don't necessarily think we're going to see the rematch of Swanson-Aldo, because I actually think Pettis is going to beat Aldo. But yeah, I think if whoever wins out of Swanson-Seaver, they should get the next title shot against the winner of Aldo Pettis.
Let me say this. UFC 162 now has its third featherweight fight. I know that we're going to cover Edgar versus Oliveira in a second. However, it's crazy to think that all these three, whoever wins these three fights, are really up there in the division. I mean, you've got Lamas versus Korean Zombie. A lot of people think Lamas is deserving. A lot of people think that Korean Zombie, a lot of people are riding on Korean Zombie right now. Seaver versus Swanson is another huge exception. Seaver has looked phenomenal. I mean, that win over Nunes, it was becoming a bit of stand and tag, but Nam Phan, he made Nam Phan look like a guy who didn't even deserve to be in the UFC. Swanson, he's been fantastic on this current run, but how is he going to handle a guy who is Seaver? Very stacked, got a very good striking base. He can defend some takedowns. Yes, Swanson has got his hands full. I'm not denying that at all. But I think Swanson wins this fight purely because I think he's probably got, even though this is crazy to admit, given that 6-second knockout, I think Swanson's probably got that better one-shot knockout power that Seaver doesn't really possess. And Cerrone was able to rock Seaver and slap on a rear naked, I think. However, Swanson has got a very long, lanky frame, and if Seaver wants to land some body kicks or a spinning back kick, things could get interesting. Whether the ribs will crack, whether his body would collapse under him, it'd be interesting. But I do like that fight, I've got to say it.
Oh, sorry, that's back to me. The other fight, which I think will have a little bit of more agreeance on, Edgar versus Charles Oliveira. I have Edgar all day in this. I think Oliveira is a great fighter, younger, probably a little faster, but Frankie Edgar is an absolute monster, and he fought in 7 title fights in a row recently. It was like Penn, Maynard, Bendo, Aldo. And I don't think he's too far away from another title fight. He's an amazing fighter, and he's even more dangerous now at 145 pounds. Patrick? Is Patrick still with us?
Who are we going with? Who's up on this one?
You're up, son.
Yeah, son. Well, shoot, I mean, Edgar and Oliveira, I want to say this will just be a train wreck, and Frankie Edgar by all rights should destroy Charles Oliveira. But Oliveira, despite some of the setbacks he's had, he's a young fighter. He's got more of a Muay Thai striking style, and he is on the taller, lankier side. That could lend to Frankie Edgar getting some takedowns. But we know Oliveira's a ground wizard, and again with that Muay Thai striking style, we've seen him throw some dangerous knees, and Frankie Edgar, he don't want no part of those knees, that's for sure. So things could get interesting with this one. I mean, any fight Frankie Edgar is in is generally speaking a good fight. So this one's bound to be no different. I got to give it to Frankie Edgar, probably by decision if it's going to be a 3-rounder. And I think Oliveira, he's not a can in this one.
I have to disagree with Patrick. I think Oliveira is definitely a can in this one. I mean, Oliveira does not cope under pressure. We saw what happened with Swanson when he took his little swan dive about a minute after he got hit, and he got annihilated by Jim Miller. He's a good fighter until he goes up against upper tier. Then he just shows well he'll never be upper tier. I see Edgar getting either a first round or second round stoppage. I think once he takes one shot from Edgar, one big shot, he won't want to know, and he'll be looking for a way out of that fight. I've got Edgar. I'll go Edgar round 1 TKO. That's what my thoughts are at the minute.
Well, we haven't seen Edgar finish anybody in the first round in a while. I think it is possible. There is no doubt in the back of my mind saying that's not possible. We've said what's really interesting about this one is we have two guys who begun their careers, or at least were just a few years ago, fighting at 155, and neither of them cut weight. Now they're fighting at 145, and both of them are going to be cutting a bit of weight because they're going to be cutting around about 10 to 5 pounds or whatever. And that just to me is quite curious that it's taking place at it could take place at 155. It doesn't really make a difference. These guys are on the same level completely in terms of weight. Edgar's going to have the better wrestling. I think Oliveira's ground game, everybody loves to call him this jiu-jitsu wizard. Other than that, Efrain Escudero rear naked choke. He got submitted by Jim Miller. He's overconfident in his game. I think if Edgar wants to take him down, I think he's going to have no problem getting out those submission attempts. And it's going to be contested on the feet, and I think it's just a matter of time how many times Oliveira wants to put that leg up, have it caught, and then he fires back with a left over the top or something like that. Edgar's going to finish the fight. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take Oliveira before he quits.
Yeah, I think all of us are unanimous in the fact that we think Frankie will win that July 4th fight. That's going to be a star-studded fight. The UFC always does it big for their July 4th card. This one going to be July 6th in Vegas, and I guess that does it for all the topics we're going to cover tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in and following us on Twitter at MMA Mental, at the MMA Podcast, at J_Jeans, and at Sweet Pappy Jones. The MMA Roundtable. You can catch us every Thursday live on Ustream, and we will tweet out those links for you to follow us every Thursday, 7 to 9 Eastern, 4 to 6 Pacific. I guess up until you do the daylight savings in the UK, it's 11 to 1, but after that it'll be back to 12 to 2. Speaking of the UK, Ray, you have any plugs for MMA Mental?
Yeah. Funny enough, the daylight savings is this week, so this will be the last one at 11 till 1. Next week will be 12 till 2. MMA Mental, as always, we've put the show up this week, it'll be up tomorrow. We've interviewed a couple of up-and-coming fighters this week. And obviously, next week, MMA Mental is off to Stockholm to cover its second UFC event, which we're very excited about. And also, in the near future, we'll be announcing a new partnership with a new website as well, which is something we're excited about as well. So, watch this space to hear more about that.
Yep, Ramses isn't here to plug word on the street, but I can tell you myself, it's a great show. He has Jamie Huey on every Tuesday after Tough. We bring on other fighters. I'm usually on there. John McGuire was on last time. And we're trying to get an interview with Mr. Chael P himself. Apparently, that might be a possibility around the corner. It is, of course, 29 days until his fight against John Bones Jones at UFC 159. Jay, you want to plug the playground?
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, last week I've said a lot about World Series of Fighting. That was indeed on League 2. If you go to the MMAplayground.com, you sign up, not only can you play, like, it's fantasy MMA, so if you love your fantasy MMA, you love to pick fights, not only can you pick the UFC fights, but if you click that League 2 button, you can go for Bellator that's live right now. I'm watching it. I'm not going to say anything because Ray can't watch it till tomorrow. But yeah, if you just love picking MMA, if you like a bit of, if you want to, you know, even if you want to try and beat us, just get on the playground, play some fantasy MMA, try and beat us all. Jake's rubbish. Ray's been there ages, and Patrick's an incredible picker. So make sure your guys are on it, and yeah, we'll see you there.
Yeah, I'm absolutely terrible at that shit. But yeah, definitely listen to the MMA podcast too. We've been a little shaky on a concrete date with balancing a couple different hosts, but it is always every Wednesday or Friday. Follow us on Twitter at the MMA podcast to figure out when it's going to be that week. And yeah, thank you again so much for tuning in to the Roundtable. We really love all the support we've gotten. Next month is going to be huge with cards. We got UFC on Fuel 9 on the 6th, Tough 17 finale on the 13th, UFC on Fox 7 on the 20th, and UFC 159 on the 27th. Literally a UFC card every single weekend next month, and I cannot wait to break that down with the rest of the Roundtable. So until next week, for myself, Ray, Jay, and Patrick, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. We out.